G'day everyone. I hope you can hear me all right. Could someone actually give me a sound check at their end and just tell me whether that's actually working? I see I've got a question already. What is that? What is the better approach in investment in time in dollars regarding Savage Axis 2 and 6.5 Creedmoor? Stiffen the stock and glass beat the action, or buy a Boyd stock for the gun? Okay, that's a good question actually. With the Savage Axis, yeah, the stock proportions on a lot of these plastic rifles that are coming out now, they're not very, they're not generous in the forend. So actually, when you're using them in the field, you can feel it like they're just not working under pressure. It's more, it's okay when you've got time to set up your shop, but when you're really under pressure, they can let you down. So realistically, you could go either way with it, but the Boyd stock, just the basic classic stock, is nice to work with. You still need to bed it, and it'll have to be bedded using the ticker bedding instruction, so that floating lug has to be temporarily made to the action. Excuse me. And the other thing with it is that you do from the front of the magazine well forwards, and then you can either mask off or just put plasticine on that barrel nut, and then bed out in front of that barrel nut by about an inch. But at the rear of the magazine well, you'll see that the trigger is actually a part of the tang really, because it's at the bottom of the trigger unit where the rear screw abuts to. So at the rear, which is actually the front of the trigger unit, sorry, you need to just put a little wee blob of bedding compound just in that spot there. So you've got a little blob of bedding compound at the trigger well, just on that little plate. And you can, if you want to, you can either put plasticine over the rest of that trigger unit, or you can mask it up in some way. And then from the front of the magazine well forwards and past that barrel nut, that's where you can have the rest of your bedding. But yeah, that combination of the Boyds and that action is probably a good combination to go with if you can afford it. It just gives you a little bit more of a generous forend, something solid to hold on to. But the other thing is that with this cheaper stuff, that sometimes it's only so far that you can take the whole thing. So you've got to keep that in mind as well. You get what you pay for. So yeah. All right. So I see we've got another question coming up, but before we get into that, I want to go back over the questions that we had originally from the forums, because that was a bit of a tricky question. So Steph, could you read that back out to me from the forum?
This is talking about the donuts. So, do you want the whole question?
Yeah.
Okay. I often see in Nathan's post that he's pointing out that seating the bullet above the junction of the shoulder and neck will create or grow the donut faster. How can that be? My belief is in this matter is that the case stretches under pressure and a little amount of head space. Then when formed, sizing back to size, the stretched out material will move forward and lengthen the neck. That then must be trimmed. Eventually the shoulder material that's thicker than the neck will begin to migrate out in the neck, and that's the donut. Okay, so
it's not so much to do with head space, Anders, but if you're seating close, so I've got my pad and paper here, so I'll see if we can. I draw like a 5-year-old, so you'll have to put up with that, sorry. But if we just do a quick photo of the case and neck. So there, so say that's the case neck, and then we seat long. So that's what we're talking about, and we're talking about a donut of the material, which is just a bump of brass just forming in that area there. And then one of our other forum members, Marty, I think he commented that he'd just seen it on partially sized necks. So, and what Marty's talking about is the likes of Reading neck dies, where with the case, let's see if I can draw that appropriately. This is just exaggerated, sorry. But when you run the case through the die, this area of the neck becomes sized, but with a reading just the start of the neck, and again this is exaggerated, it's not sized. And what Marty was saying was that he just noticed a donut forming in that area there. So in that sense, what we're seeing is the brass flowing under high pressure, and it's basically cold forming. Now, you would think that during ignition, that projectile leaves immediately. Therefore, anything that's going on behind it is going to be insignificant. And I mean, that's a natural conclusion. But what I do find is that with continued reloading, you do, if you're seating out into the case neck, you do end up with this donut. So it must be almost like a whiplash. And with Marty's example, that's even more so. So the case wasn't formed to the chamber, and then as it shook itself out, basically like shaking a blanket, it's picked up in behind that projectile there and caused a donut. So what's the problem with a donut? That's the big deal. So people are wondering, well, is this something you have to worry about? And also, we get mixed up because the bench resters, they have all of their own ideas about things. So the first thing I would really like you to understand is just because someone shoots in bench rest, that doesn't make them an expert in anything. Some people are good at what they do, some aren't. We're all at various stages of learning, and then when you get up to my level of learning, you realise that you know basically bugger all, and that's just how it is. But with the donut, it's really only a problem in this example as the case keeps continuing to grow with continued reloading. Well, eventually that donut will just get longer and longer, so it's harder for you to actually seat to your original cartridge overall length, because as you know, you have to keep trimming your brass every so many reloads, and that donut's coming forwards with it. So what ends up happening is you're getting some resistance there on your press, and you're not quite getting back to that point. So you're having trouble actually maintaining that cartridge overall length. But then if you seat over the donut, then this area here, so if the bullet's seated back to here, then what's happening is this donut actually becomes a crimp. And the other problem is if you change projectiles, you change the brand of projectile that you're using, you go to a longer projectile, well then again you've got a crimp in that area, and that's going to jack up your pressures. So the thing is, sometimes you've got to put up with a donut, because in the likes of the 7x57, for example, if you seat, let's say you want to run the 162 grain ELD-M, or even the ELD-X, and you want to get that, let's say your rifle likes to shoot with a projectile close to the lands. Well, you're going to end up with a donut because it's seated, the projectile's seated right out into the neck. So what do you do about that? Well, as Paul Leverman pointed out on the forums, throw the brass out once it starts to form a donut, once you notice that. And you can take a bit of wire and just run that into the case and actually just feel, if you pick up that lip of that donut, then just throw the brass out. But with the 7x57, normally the way to avoid getting the donut all together is to make sure you seat your projectiles back to the shoulder neck junction of the case. So if you have your projectile seated back there, and let's say it's a boat tail, and then the boat tail comes back from that point there, then you're not going to have a donut. You're not going to have that issue. But again, with that 7x57, for example, if you seat that far back, you'll notice it's actually quite a rude seating depth. You just know your gut feel that it's wrong. It's got a long jump. You're losing quite a bit of that case capacity, and that long neck's just... But yeah, I hope that at least answers some of that. What I'm trying to say basically is that it's something that you'll come across the more you reload, and the more you use those cases. And you can either address it via how far back you seat. So if you can, seat flush to the case neck shoulder junction. But if you can't do that, well, sometimes you're just going to have to use that brass for as long as you can, and then bin it. But as far as the bench rest crowd goes, where someone commented that the bench resters, they do this, they do that, and they're used to setting out long. Well, realistically, if you've got a case design which you're setting out into the neck, you're not really getting optimal use out of that case. Also, if some cartridges, let's say the 308, for example, that that cartridge, it can handle jump. You can sit the projectile a good 2.5 millimeters off the lands. So what's that, 40, 80, 100 thou off the lands. And provided that the ammunition is concentric, it will remain true as it strikes the lands, and you'll have good accuracy. So it's possible to shoot inside 0.3 to keep your ES down, all those good things. But that comes more down to your reloading technique and your control over that process. But to seat a 308 to the lands, just to try and enhance accuracy, well, it's kind of ridiculous, really. And also, I mean, we expect snipers to use the 308, or we used to, out to long ranges with the cartridge as it is. So they're not seating out to the lands and having ammunition that's longer than the magazine. It doesn't have to be done. But it's surprising how many people misuse the 308 Winchester in that manner. I mean, there's just no need for it. So yeah, hopefully that helps answer some of those questions. But if you've got any more around that, just put it in the comments box there, and we'll see if we can get to it. All right. So you got any other ones there, Steph?
We've got the looking for a semi-auto 308.
Semi-automatic 308. Any suggestions? Well, there's just so many people competing on the AR market, the AR-10 market. You've got the likes of Rock River and Stag Arms, and I mean, there's all sorts out there. But realistically, for me, it always comes down to accuracy. So I'm always looking at the marksman type models or varminting models. And just personally, I would rather take a varminting type AR and then cut the barrel down and reprofile it, or just set that up the way I want it, than to actually to buy something that's short and light and hope like hell that it all works out. I'd rather go short and heavy and just set that up accordingly. And of course, you tend to build more than buy. Triggers is another thing. You get the AR and goodbye trigger. So if that's the way you want to go, you think about building. But yeah, keep a bit of weight in that barrel. You don't have to go longer than 20, but it pays to not go shorter than 16, and 18 is a good compromise for a 308, really. But they're optimal at about 20 inches. So if you can stick around that 20 inch, I know everyone wants to go really, really short these days, and you see hog colors talking about really short 16, 14 inch barrels, but they're not like clearing hogs from inside, a building. So I don't see why you should sort of handicap yourself in that way, because with the 308, as you go longer than 20 inches, you may not pick up much in velocity, maybe 15 feet per second. But as you go below 20 inches, you start to lose a good 25 feet per second. And 308 can handle being launched at very slow speeds. There's a lot of bullet weight there. That is one thing. So if you launch a 168 grain at about 2,400 feet per second, you've still got a hard-hitting load. It's as good as the 303 British was. But it just really depends on those personal interests that you have. But for me, I like to sort of hang around that 20 inches. Yeah. If it's a hog culling rifle, of course, the slower you go, the more penetration you get, because there's less strain on the bullet. So if you're at 16 inches, 2,400 feet per second, with a 168 grain tipped bullet of basic construction without any bonding or anything like that, you're still going to get very good penetration. So that is something to consider. I see we have here Bergara HMR. Is it worth betting? All right. So with the Bergara rifles that are coming out, some are good out of the box. They're just fine as they are, and some aren't. It's as simple as that. So you got to go to the range, test it, and actually see for yourself what it's all about. But Bergara used just a basic plastic stock. It's a little bit heftier than some of the other stuff out there. Overall, the rifles are really good quality, and I've seen great accuracy. One of our clients, he set up a 3006 just not long ago, and that was just straight out of the box. We went over it as we do with the accurizing book. He did the trigger. He set it all up nicely, put that time into getting the optics positioned correctly. Went to the range and it shot something about half an inch, something like that, with factory ammo. So that's great out of the box. But then I had a 308 heavy barrel, one of the, heavy barrel 308s. It's not really a tactical type. I can't remember the name of it now. But anyway, no good. It was shooting all over the target. But that was just the bedding. And it had heavy pillars in the stock. This is for the vertical pistol grip stock. And it was just not a good shooter. But that's really just bedding. So yes, ideally you should bed them, and especially for the knocks and tumbles that they get out in the woods. So you can shoot them as they are, and they will. Some will go all right, some won't. But if you're really serious about your shooting, or you wanting to get into long range, then bed the whole lot of them. But you want to go to the range first and actually see what's going on with it, and see what kind of potential it actually has, perhaps before you start digging into it, just in case that it is an unusual dud bore, and you might be able to get a warranty claim. But the moment you start working on it, that warranty is void. But for me personally, bed the damn things. Yeah. What else have we got there? Is it possible to use two bushings in each other reading die? No. So there's a question there about the two bushings stacked up on top of each other in a reading die. No, because what it is, you've got the shape of a die, and then there's material there to actually stop the bushing falling out of the die. And it's that point where that, you could call it a bridge, I suppose. The bushing sits on top of that, and it just sort of floats around. So it's sort of sitting on a washer, you could say. Well, it's that sort of area, that washer, that the neck isn't being sized in. And I think that's the best reading could do, as in they've taken it as far as they can. They've really thought it through, but that's as far as they could go with it. So, and again, in that sense, you may get a donut with certain cases, but it depends on how much you're using them. And Marty's example was a 223, and it's doing a lot of range work. So those cases are being used over and over again. I suppose if you had like a Weatherby Magnum and you were running reading dies, you'd be a bit unhappy if you had to junk the brass because of donuts. But I guess the key is to just try, even though that's not really being sized down right down to that shoulder, is to just keep that bullet back towards that shoulder neck junction if you possibly can. But yeah, I think one of the plus sides of having that little bit of swelling at the start of the neck is that just gives it that final bit of forming to make it fully concentric with the bore. So it really gives it a good start. But sometimes it is a bit of an annoyance when it's not sizing the whole neck, and you've got a cartridge which already has a short neck like the 300 Rem Mag. But on the other hand, it seems to work, so why muck with it? Yeah. 6.5 by 47. Yeah, but the problem, see, the thing is I'm more into hunting, and I find the 6.5 by 47, it can get up to speed, but it's just at long ranges, let's say sort of 700 yards and beyond, your energy levels are right down. And people think of energy levels in terms of how much energy they need to penetrate. They have all these crazy ideas of where their energy is going. But the kind of energy potential that I'm interested in is the kinetic energy potential to actually cause expansion of that projectile to really get it to open up. And so once you get out long, if you don't have high energy, then the bullet is actually struggling to open up because it just doesn't have enough energy to do so. And then secondly to that, or maybe as a primary factor, that once your energy levels start to drop, you start to lose hydraulic force. And so then you're completely reliant on mechanical wounding forces because you haven't got that hydraulic energy. Forget about all this cavitation bullshit. We were just talking straight out hydraulic energy to create a disproportionate to caliber wound. So once you lose that ability to do that because your energy is so low, then you're quite reliant on mechanical forces. And mechanical forces means how much that bullet's actually opening up and shedding weight and the remainder of its energy. How can it actually get rid of that already very low energy? And the way to do that is through bullet weight. But until such time as these companies start putting out decent, 160 grain weight bullets, or it's kind of hard to, depending on the size of the animal and the range you want to shoot to, it can put limitations on things. And you see that in the field for yourself. You don't need me to tell you that. You don't need my opinion. What you need is your own observation, which of course is the first tenet of science. So any other interesting questions there?
Yeah. Is it worthwhile trying to drill out doughnuts and then resize if the brass otherwise seems to have some more life?
Yes, that's a good question, and there are inside neck turners. So have a look at K&M Turning. They have tools for that. So yeah, very, very simple. Simple solution. Thank you for pointing out the obvious. What else have we got? From Great Britain, Paul. G'day, Paul. Followed your instructions. All my rifles bedded and shoot superbly. Oh, that's brilliant. Good to hear. Just ordered. So JR says he's just ordered a 30-06 Ackley Foster Manson and 7mm Rem Mag Foster Manson reamers yesterday. Looking forward to trying them out. Oh, good. So with the 30-06 Ackley, so what you're going to have is this. It's not minimum length for SAMI, for cartridge oval length. It's not maximum either. It's just inside maximum a little bit. But what you'll find is that the lead angle is very, very shallow. So, yeah, you'll find that works very well for both of those cartridges. The throat geometry for the 30-06 for the reamer that we've made is a little bit different to the 7mm Rem Mag, but they've both been optimized for use across the board. But anyway, you should have a lot of fun with that 30-06 Ackley, because I would envisage that you'll be getting up around, if you're 24, hopefully you'll be 25 to 26 inches. But from 24 inches, you'll get 2,600 feet per second with a 195 to 208 grain. JR, if you get a chance, have a play with Reloaded 22. I think the normal equivalent is MRP. That current powder, it does work really well. It fills that case quite well. And some rifles, though, that Hodgdon Superformance works really well too. So you can really get the big velocities there. And then just look for sweet spots in that. Around about 2650 from a 26-inch barrel through to about 2720. With Superformance, I've gotten up up to 2820, something like that, but which is fast for a 30-06. But the accuracy was starting to fall off. Just the interesting thing was the cases is still fine. I'm still using the same cases, so it just shows you what you can do with a 30-06 these days with modern powders. And with that 7mm Rem Mag, the cartridge oval length will be pretty much the same as what you get from factory, but the geometry is different. So you'll find that's possibly easier to work with than the factory rifle, and you'll be able to try your ELD-Ms, your ELD-X, and also the Sierra Game Changer, that 165 grain. That's a bit of a hybrid. It's not a true tangent, so you might find that's a bit easier. Just watch with your powder charges, though, because some of this new stuff coming out does jack the pressures up. So with the new X, the new ELD-Ms, the 180s, and the Game Changer, and the TMK, just be a bit careful with your loading. Don't just jump into previously known loads, because the pressures do go up. That's for the 7mm Rem Mag. In the 30-06, you'll find that a little bit more forgiving, so that's a little bit easier to work with. All right, so what else have we got today? Yes, that's true. It might not have been that brass after all, especially if it's one of the bigger bores. Of course, it's expensive to replace, so yeah. What else have we got here? Well, that looks like we're pretty much up with all of that. Does anyone else have any questions? G'day, Lane. How are you going? Good to see you there. Any other questions that we've got for this week? Nothing coming through? Well, hopefully that's answered a few bits and pieces for now. We can hang around for a little bit if you like and just let you guys do a bit more typing, but otherwise, what have we got coming through? Dylan Jones, love the books and you've been great help. Oh, thank you, Dylan. That's really nice of you to say. Red Stag, UK powder of choice for the 6.5 Creedmoor 130. Because things have changed a bit with your powder choices, I'm not sure exactly what powders you're allowed to use now with that stupid shipping law. But have a look into MRP. The basic a bog standard load would be Norma 204, something like that. You know, that's something that's always worked well in the Swede and that sort of bore diameter around there. But if you want to try and slow it down a bit, then the slowest you would probably want to go to is MRP. So yeah, I haven't tested some of these new powders, sorry, because we've just been behind the 8 ball with all that. I know that you guys have been under a bit of pressure with those law changes. So yeah, any thoughts on breaking in the Savage Axis 2 barrel? All right, that's a good question again, because sometimes with the Savage, they're already at maximum dimensions, loose dimensions, and they can be rough, and then they can have a high finish on them as well. So underneath that high finish, the bore is rough and it's of loose dimensions. So if you start hooking into it, all you're going to do, I'm talking about lapping wise, all you're going to do is open up those dimensions further. So you really need to go through that full break-in process and see how much fouling it's producing. And just do your normal procedure where you shoot clean. So one shot and then clean, and 2 shots and clean. Use a good harsh solvent, none of this hoppies or other weak stuff. You can use that in low fouling bores, but not at the beginning when you're breaking it in. So try Wipeout or something like that, Sweets or KRG, and then just see how that copper comes away. And then if after a half a dozen shots you actually start to see it's reducing quite quickly, it might actually get to the point where it's not fouling at all. Well, then you need to actually back off much of your cleaning altogether and just keep it lubed and protected. But sometimes with a Savage, like I said, they can have that high finish, but it's rough underneath and it's loose. So you want to take up as much of that as you can by leaving that copper in there and letting it get quite dirty. So some of the Savages, they do like to be shot in that manner. So just be a bit careful. And also that also applies right through to the 338 Lapua and some of those fancy numbers they put out. They have all the whistles and bells, but the basic machining can still be a bit rough, and there can be a few burrs and this and that and the other. But often you'll see gun drill marks and that kind of carry on, and the dimensions are very loose. And you think, oh, I'd really like to polish that. Well, don't. Not unless you have to, unless it's picking up really heavy fouling and you know you need to get in there and start lapping all of that out. Then, yeah, sure. But just take it really easy with those. With all that budget stuff, go in with a minimal mindset. Same with the Ruger American. We did a full video on that rifle, setting it up, shooting it, and all that sort of carry on. And there's not a hell of a lot to do, but there's things you can do wrong, and we can just get carried away and chase the wrong variables. But yeah, that Ruger American is a very, very basic rifle, and you want to just set it up right and then put all of your time into observation. That really is the key there, and just see what it's actually capable as is. And don't throw too much money at them, because really, if you wanted to throw money at a rifle, then get something of a higher quality to begin with. So you might want to start with a Bergara, or actually, bugger, it's still a Predator, something like that. Start there and then build your way up. But if you're going to start with something like that Ruger American, well, try working with it as it is. So just do your very basic setup, but pay attention to the important things like the trigger. Get the action rust proofed underneath, and then get that trigger set up right, and get that barrel broken in carefully, again, not taking it too far, just going through observation. Then work on, make sure the forings floated on them, because sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. On the Ticker, which is a sort of equivalent sheet rifle, don't float it. If it's not designed to be floated, just leave it as it is for now. And then just see how the darn thing goes. And use it as it is. It's designed as a budget rifle. So it's really what you bring to the table with those. And I talked about that in the long-range shooting book. There's a chapter there called a budget plastic stock rifle. And really that was just about, learning to work with it, but not pushing it too far and having unrealistic expectations from these things. And if you really put your attention into the right areas, then you can get them shooting really well. Of course, they can be very unforgiving if they're very light and they don't settle well. You can easily pull a shot, but that's where it comes down to actually getting to know that particular rifle. All right, so what else? Have you got anything else there, Steph?
Somebody's asking about your thoughts on the 6.5 PRC versus 7mm Rem Mag on tar.
All right, 7mm Rem Mag, it's as simple as that, because you don't have the bullet weight. And we're already seeing this with tar hunters coming back saying that the 6.5 bullets on the close range shots are sometimes failing to get through that onside shoulder. So that, and with the thick winter skins and a heavy muscle, heavy bone, some of the bullets break up and then they rest on that onside chest wall, or they'll just make it through. So the animal goes down on, say, the third or fourth shot, something like that, which is useless. So then you think, oh, I'll just use a tough bullet. But then, as you just mentioned, 700 meters. At that range, your tough bullet is useless, because we talked about before the bullet having to have enough energy to open up that bullet. But as you get out to those ranges, the projectile, it lacks energy to actually do so. Or let's say the manufacturer guarantees that their bullet opens up at that range or that impact velocity. So what? Because that will be the last of its energy. That does not necessarily mean that it has the ability to generate a wound at that range. So you guys need to start waking up to some of this bullshit, these companies and these people who call themselves ballistic experts and this, that, and the other, bullet makers and so forth, what they're putting onto you, because it's just, a lot of the time it's just not so. And the other thing is, why do we have to keep dulling ourselves down, or dumbing ourselves down? Why are we doing that to ourselves? So 7mm Remington Magnum, 162 grain bullet, SST, ELDX, game changer, something like that. But if you want to take it right out, 180 grain ELDM, something like that. So just get that weight up. So then you've got that downrange momentum, then you've got the energy, which causes both bullet expansion and mechanical wounding in the absence of hydraulic force. This real basic stuff, and don't let anyone else tell you any different. And then, above all, use your own eyes. Observe. Again, you don't need me at that point. You can see that for yourself. So yeah, pretty straightforward. Now, of course, the 6.5, the new 6.5s like the PRC and the Creedmoor, what they have going for them is that throat geometry. So Hornady have come up with a cartridge design. They've come up with a chamber design, and then they've taken that to Ruger, and then Ruger have come up with have cut the chambers to suit that cartridge design, which is the ultimate combination. It's kind of like what we're doing with the Manson reamers, where we've designed the reamer to suit the bullets that we know work for the guys who are hunting that they want to use. So that whole thing works out really well. So with the PRC and the Creedmoor, this is why old Joe Bloggs goes down to the store, buys a Ruger American on special for $300 wherever US, goes home with a packet of 147 grain ELDM or 143 grain ELDX or something like that, goes out to the range, shoots nearly a one-hole group and declares that, this is the best thing ever. Well, that's because of that geometry that's put into it. So it can be quite a win-win for Hornady and Ruger. So with a 7mm Rem Mag, you may not get that true combination. So that's where you really want to be thinking of, again, along the lines sometimes of building rather than buying, just so that you're optimizing that rifle for your usage. I mean, 700 meters is a long way, and we take that for granted now. In fact, so much so that we're trying to do these stupid things with these cartridges that may not be ideally suited to that task. I mean, out at long ranges, it does take the pressure off the bullet, so you're not getting that bullet blow up that you are at close ranges, but there may be times where you just don't have that energy, or you just don't have the wow factor that you're looking for either. So it might do the job, but it's not oof down, that's something you really do keep with the heavier stuff, the 30 cals and the 7mm with the heavier bullets. So yeah. Right, what else have we got going on there? Lane S, I wonder if professional hunters that don't know any better might give pushback over it. Yeah, that I would definitely. So I'll give you really good example of that, and that would be Nilgai. The Nilgai guides. So there was a trend there for a long time. With people saying that the nilgai was so tough, you needed a large caliber to tackle them. So, okay, that's fair enough. This is in Texas. And so the guys started to bring on larger rifles, and still the nilgai weren't going down. And so the guys then said, well, the bullets can't be tough enough, so you need a tougher bullet. So then the trend was towards the Barnes bullets, things like that. And then the later, it's sort of evolved to the latest talk is that nilgai are so tough that even if you shoot a nilgai with a Barnes bullet, it's still going to run 100, 200 yards. That's how tough they are. And so I had a client recently, he wanted to go out after nilgai, and he had the 375 Holland & Holland, and he said, which bullet should I use? And I said, I'd like you to use the 270 grain Spear boat tail soft point, which is almost completely frangible. So he got set up, he got it sighted in, and then he said, are you sure? The guide said I have to use a Barnes bullet. That won't penetrate the nilgai. And I said, as long as you've got the weight, you're going to have the penetration. But the problem is that there's two problems here. One is that shot placement, I think, is the major issue, where people are aiming so far behind the shoulder they're hitting the rear of the lungs and the animal's running. So I want you to keep your shots well forwards. That's the first thing, because you're only shooting up to 300 yards. Most shots are 100 to 200 yards. So keep your shots well forwards, either on the line of the leg as you see the animal broadside, or just in front. So maybe 1 to 2 inches in front of that front line of the front leg. But actually, if you look at the line of the leg rather than the centre, if you just aim along the front of it, centre shoulder, you'll drop them. And then the other thing was that the guy was saying that he was worried that the bullet would break up too much. I said, no, because you've got the weight, you've got the mild velocity, you've got the weight, you'll get the penetration. So that's the key. You get your weight up, don't worry about bullet construction. So he did all that, and there was pushback. There definitely was. And then he took the shot, and he just completely poleaxed the animal. It took a nosedive, and it destroyed the entire lung cavity. So it was just shredded. It was all still together, but it was just in shreds. The whole entire lungs were shredded. And then to show that it wasn't a fluke, he actually had another opportunity, and that one took a nosedive again. This was just recently. And the guide was asking, what kind of bullet is that you're using? Must be some special bullet. Well, no, it's not a special bullet. It's just physics and biology and a bit of common sense. So, yeah, there is a bit of pushback. Because what I'm talking about also, there's times when you do need a tougher bullet. So, everything's got to be taken within context. Yeah. There are millions of questions popping up in my head, but social convention is forcing me to go and socialise. Got some good info here. Okay, very good. All right, we'll catch you later and another time. Yuck tuck, what have we got there? 18.7 inch 308 win for elk and moose. I want a cartridge that will handle up to 400 metres, meaning approximately 1,800 feet to second, 1,200 foot-pounds. Am I asking too? Well, I mean, it's been done before. A lot of people are happy with it. Really, it depends on what your expectations are. That's the other side of it. People in the past shoot the moose and then they don't mind it runs. They sit and wait it out. Same with the bow hunter. They sit and wait it out. People like myself want everything to just drop on the spot. And sometimes you can't have your cake and eat it, and sometimes you can. But with the 308, what we're talking about there is shot placement and how familiar you are with that particular rifle and what your expectations are. But if you wanted to neck shoot, well, not so much neck shoot actually. You can shoot just at the junction of the shoulder and the neck itself. If you get good at shooting to that spot, and that's a hell of a big target, then you can make that cartridge work for you. And as you said, 1,800 feet per second, 1,200 foot-pounds. Yep, that's good common sense. But just do work on your loads. You might want to use, say, a 200 grain partition or something like that, and just get that up running nice and fast. Probably at about 24 2475 feet per second, or you're 18.7, so let's say 2400 feet per second, just hypothetically, with H4895. That's the powder I'd be going for. It's a good, safe powder. You can run it right up and not worry about blowing up your rifle, so that's a good one. If you can't afford a premium bullet, you could use the 200 grain ELDX for that shot that I just talked about. It does work, yeah. So that is a good one. If you're really keeping into that neck area there, yeah, you can even use the 195 grain ELDM or TMK. That's a zero tipped match king. And for elk, yeah, those 200 grains are perfect, and just go straight for the shoulder. Yep, because you'll have that slow velocity, low impact velocity. You get the penetration because you've got the weight. So yeah, that's it. Yep, you'll be good to go. But just you need to know that rifle. That's the biggest thing. Sometimes if you go too short and too light, it's actually not as steady as it could be if we're not careful. So just make sure it's all working for you. If you could use only one rifle caliber for hunting and long range, what would it be? Oh gosh, that's hard. And I see your call name here is Red Stag. So let's say it's Red Stag 3006 down. Yeah. If it was, sort of depends on the different conditions, because if it was due to financial constraints, might have to be 308 or something like that. But if components are always readily available and so forth, well then, that might be a Magnum. But to be quite honest with you, my hack rifle is a 308, so I use that a hell of a lot. But if I couldn't have my other long range rifles, then I'd probably have to be a 3006, because that would be the compromise, and I could run a heavy bullet and use it out long, or use it in any way I like. So yeah, and you can download it for the young ones as well. But that may not suit everyone. A young guy the other day was asking me about packing into the wilderness for 2 years, and I realised that even the 308's got to be no good, because he just can't carry. He doesn't want to be resupplied, so he can't carry that much ammunition. So realistically, 2 to 3 heavy bullet neck shoot or head shoot, and because you need to be realistic and think about what do you eat in that survival situation. It's going to be small game, a lot of small game, and things that you wouldn't normally eat that don't taste so nice. But yeah, so horses for courses, I suppose. And much as I really don't like the 2D3 for all around use, sometimes it's the right way to go. So yeah, Yup Tuck, 178 grain ELDX, 168 grain ELDM are very accurate out of my rifle, running around 2,450 muzzle velocity. I think you could possibly get a bit more speed out of that. Sometimes what we do is we assign the top end of we see that we've loaded up and we've hit this spot, and we think, oh, that's as much as the rifle will take. Obviously, it's too much pressure. But what you'll often find is actually the bedding's no good, or so there's something else going on there which is actually limiting you from actually reaching those higher velocities and pressures. And so what you're actually doing is running a download to compensate for that, but we're not aware that we're doing it. So it could be, for instance, a suppressor which is caking up the chamber, and it's not allowing you to actually get up to full speed or full pressure because it's causing pressure spikes. Sitting too close to the lands in a 308, that'll do it, because your ammo might not be concentric. So I think what you could just try is just run a basic set of lead eyes, neck size, with the lead neck collet die. The H4895, but do go over all those checks, make sure the trigger's right, the bedding is all right. Make sure you've got enough fore end in that rifle. It's got a little bit of heft, so you go short but not too light. And then what I'd like you to try and do is get that 168 grain ELDM to begin with, because you've got those projectiles now. I want you to look for a sweet spot up around about 2600, no lower, so up around there, and it'll be about 2620 around there, and your cartridge overall length will be 2.795. So try that. And again, if you need to try those dyes, because just work on that concentricity, and so that it crosses that freebore nicely. And for brass, probably something basic like Hornady brass would be just perfect, actually. So you give that a go and see how you get on. But bedding is the big one. That'll often let you down, and it lies to you. The rifle lies to you. It looks like pressure's the problem. All right, so what else have we got? A new reloader looking to start loading the 325 grain Hornady FTX and the Marlin 1895. Very good. Hornady says to trim to 2.04 inches. In the knowledge base, did you trim to that length? Any suggestions? Yeah, I just stick to factory. I just do what they say. And if you're new to reloading, you don't want to go listening to what old such and such says anywhere. Just stick with the books. Now, there should be, if you go to the ADI website in Australia, they've got their reloading manual, and it'll have the different pressure ranges for the Marlin. So you've got old Marlin, and you've got 1895 Marlin, and you've got Ruben number 1 for the 4570. So there's the 3 different load brackets, and you can actually choose your loads from there. Now, I've just said they're Australian. It's Australian manual and powders, but if you go to the back of the book, you'll see that ADI make the powder for Hodgdon. Not all of it, but a lot of it. So if you go to the back of the manual and you look at the powder equivalents, you'll see which powder is equivalent to which, and as a Hodgdon powder, if that's all you have access to. You can also go to our website and find those manuals on the website. They're in the knowledge base. I think it's under cartridge research or rifle accuracy. One of those tabs there, you'll find that manual there. Just follow that. Just keep everything fairly basic. But with the FTX, it's good to run it nice and fast, because it does do good work at high speeds. You do want to run it as fast as safely possible. And probably a little bit faster than some of the factory stuff that I've seen. But yeah, it's a good bullet. It will break up quite quickly because it's not used to being driven at some of the speeds we can drive it to. But you'll get a bit of wow factor out of it. That's for real. What else have we got? Have you any reduced load suggestions for the 3006? Okay, that just leads straight back into the other question. If you again go to that section of our website, knowledge base, and there's the load manuals there, and you'll see the Hodgdon reduced load area. Just personally, I've found that the rifles vary quite a bit once you start actually dropping the loads back. So you do have to work that out for yourself. So just follow their rules, and if you, it's also up to you whether you want to go with a lightweight bullet or a heavier weight bullet for the young ones. For instance, when they're quite young and you're just starting them out for getting them behind the rifle and shooting it, just getting a feel for it. And it's just too big for them, so they can't even hold it securely to get the recoil down. They've got to cross their arms over, and they're really, really struggling. They might have that. They're usually like this. This is the natural way the little ones want to do it. And if you see the 2 fingers on the trigger, that means the trigger's just too heavy for them. Get them off the rifle and just get them away from it. It's no good for them. If they can't pull it with 1 finger, then they can't run with it. And then from there, you'd probably start with Trail Boss and fill the case up just below the base of the bullet, just a few millimeters short of that. And you'll probably be running about sort of 1,500 feet per second, maybe a bit less, 1,400, with a 168 grain or something like that. And just get them plinking for a while. And you'll find that most kids can handle that because the weight of the rifle will overcome the recoil. And it just gets them used to a bit of noise because it's going over the sound barrier. That's the first thing, is to get them used to that. Get their ear muffs comfortable. If the ear muffs are too big, they can't get on the stock properly. So you've got to have a bit of a play with it. And sometimes you'll find these push-fit earplugs. They're like a rubber earplug. They look like a Christmas tree with a stalk. It's the stalk that you want because you can actually get that into their little ears without causing them any pain. And then after that, you would go up and you would look at running the 110 grain VMAX. And if you wanted to, you could run, if the animals are larger, then yes, you want to run a 168 grain at about 2200 feet per second when they're ready for it. And that just ensures you've got that weight there. You can think of that like a 30-30 load, but with a lot more range. It'll hit hard out to quite a distance. But if you're hunting smaller animals, pronghorn, things like that, well, yeah, have a look at that 110 grain VMAX. That's quite a good bullet to work with. Do you have any use experience for the 375 Rigger? Actually, see, the 375 Rigger is a great cartridge, and a few people have asked me if they've been worried that it's going to just disappear off the face of the earth, and they're thinking that it's sort of its days are numbered, and it's actually not. It's been quite popular. I get a lot of readers from Alaska and Victoria and Australia who are adopting it, using it, and putting it to good use. So it's the same when I talked about that nilgai hunt. There's a lot you can do with it, but I still think that the bullet makers could put a lot more effort into supporting it. Because if you think about it, Hornady have come up with this, or Ruger have come up with this thing, and Hornady have made the ammo, but they've really not come up with anything new for the average guy to actually put through it. So as far as projectiles go, so that's no good. So yeah, but I think there's still a lot of work there, and I think Hornady need to actually sort of step back and actually have a look at when they say there's no market for something, is there really no market for something, or are they just not really being focused in that area and people have given up waiting? So yeah, but anyway, yeah, good cartridge, has great merit. The rifles could be a little bit different. Like it would be nice if they would just have clean barrels on their models, 24 or 26, something like that. Nothing too fancy, but yeah, good merit, and of course, it's a good little rifle once you've done a bit of work on it. So. And a lot of fun, just a heck of a lot of fun. Yeah. Have I missed anything there, Steve?
Yeah. In your opinion, which budget hunting rifle do you believe is the best?
Budget hunting rifle. Tikka, you get really good value for money with those, but they are hard to manage. A lot of guys just, as you get up into the larger cartridges, guys just can't really shoot them. Or let's say you do get good with the rifle, but you go away on a job. Let's say it's an office or a computer job, a project that takes you away from the field for a number of months, and you come back and you don't actually have time to practice. You've got this hunt book that you've been looking forward to at the end of this project. Away you go, and the rifle's just too much of a handful because it's just so flimsy. So on the one hand, the Tikka is probably the most accurate budget rifle, but on the other hand, there's a lot more work they could do there, and they've been a bit slack in that department. They came out with that T3X, but they didn't really change much or anything on it. So yeah, there's room for improvement there, but yeah, that's probably one of the better of the budget rifles, probably one of the best. Yeah, and then going up from there, there's the Bergara, of course. It's not really a budget rifle. But you can sometimes find that at quite a low price. I do quite like those, but I would like to see Bergara put more emphasis into stainless, and I'd like to see 26-inch barrels on the magnums as standard. So a little bit more work to do there, but yeah, that's a good rifle. As for a lot of this other stuff, I tend to steer clear of it. I get sometimes a bit annoyed with the knockoffs of the Tikka, where it's just, they're just chucking these things together and getting them out as quickly as they can. So, yeah, not so much fun there. But yeah, for a budget gun, the Tikka can be all right to work with. The Ruger American for a super budget gun, yeah, that's quite a good rifle. It's just about your expectations, but I've been quite surprised about how easy they are to just get up and running and get going with them, but don't always expect huge results. And you'll come across something like the 450 Bushmaster or some of the magnums they've put out. So you've got this horrendous recoil from this light, flimsy, bloody plastic rubbish. They could do it with a bit of stock on them. So in some ways, some of them are quite ill-conceived. The 450's got a muzzle brake, but because the barrel's so short, it just puts that blast into your ears. and that can put you off the shot. So that sort of kills up your follow-up shot potential. So people don't sort of think that through to its conclusion. They think, oh, the recoil's been reduced. No, well, here, yes, but it's your perception is still putting you off in other ways. So you may not actually perform as well as you could. But I've had a bit of fun with the Ruger American, I must admit. But oddly, it was the stock was the right proportions for Riley, our daughter, when she was 13 years old. So well done, Bergara, for creating a rifle for 13-year-old girls and promoting it to 40-year-old men. So we've got any other questions?
Florida Cracker did ask where these live chats are advertised in advance.
Yeah, well, this is our first one, sorry, and I didn't really know what I was doing. And also, when Steph logged on, she went to YouTube to have a look at my channel, and it didn't show up. It seemed to show if you're subscribed, which must be part of the whole, become a subscriber, click here crap thing that everyone does. I'm really not into that. I'm not into all that advertising and all. I mean, I do like to advertise the few products that we have, but so I don't know about that like, click, subscribe here bullshit. Not for me, sorry. So, but hopefully over the next few weeks we'll work out how these things go and how I can do this more without looking like a dinosaur. Yeah. What are your views on the Sierra Game Changer? Oh, it's very similar to the ELDX. So if you've got the copy of the cartridges book, you'll see my comments in there. So it's quite a heavy jacketed bullet, but it is designed to produce rapid expansion. So it does have some long-range merit. But in order to perform at those ranges, you need to have the bullet weight up so that you have the energy at those ranges. So don't look at it just across the board, or if you be aware that there are range limitations when you put a heavy jacket on a bullet. That does cause it. So it enhances its performance at close ranges. It diminishes the performance a little bit as far as wounding potential goes at longer ranges, but in many situations they can work in our favour. They can be just right. Maybe we're shooting, let's say, a 7mm Remington Magnum to 600-700 yards or something like that, and we've got tar. We had the tar question earlier. Well, perfect really, because you're going to get the penetration there. So with the close range shots, which is what the real worry is a lot of the time. Yeah, so worth experimenting with. Definitely worth having to play with. But then there are other times when a person may find the TMK, tipped match king, is actually the better choice of bullet, even though it's not advertised for long range. So that's quite an outstanding killing bullet, the TMK. So just do be aware of that as well. Yeah, all right. Have I missed anything? I see all these people saying hello, so that's nice. Thank you, guys. It's good to have your support. It makes this a little bit easier. The questions make it a bit easier because, of course, it gets a bit awkward sitting here without saying anything during this first podcast as I learn just what the heck I'm doing. But anyway, I think that's just about it for today. And we'll see how that one goes. We might have another one of these in a few weeks' time and just see how we go. But thank you so much, guys, for tuning in, and thanks for your questions. It'll probably help a lot of other people. So that's really good. All right, guys, until next time.